This is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. When I was younger, I had a special signal with one of my friends. So silly, so fun, so funny. I want to share it with you. When one of my friends and I were talking about something that we wanted to keep secret, and one of us noticed somebody else coming closer to us, we had a special signal that we would use to tell each other, to communicate each other, that somebody was nearby and we need to stop talking. And then when that person was gone, we just keep on talking. And we kept that signal longer than we should have. And occasionally, I'm still friends with this person. Occasionally, when we see each other, we'll just use that signal on each other just for fun, just as a joke. Whenever someone was approaching and we were talking about something we didn't want leaked, we'd use this signal. Caw, caw. Like talk about something totally obvious. We would literally just look at each other and say, caw, caw, and we do it really loud so the other person could even hear. No joke, so obvious. Here's the thought behind this. We wanted to make it so obvious that the person hearing us doing it would think it was just a total joke. What about you? Did you have some kind of secret signal that you used with your friends and you still remember it? And maybe you still use it today, like I do jokingly with my friend from time to time. If you're watching this video with someone, would you please pause the video and share with each other what that secret signal was? Here's why I started with that very, very simple and silly illustration. That silly caw caw, it alerted us to somebody else's presence, and it made it really, really obvious. The text for this video is Colossians chapter 4, verses 3 to 6. And in this text, we're going to see an emphasis on prayer. However, the call to pray had a specific function in this text. It was to make something that's hard to see very clear so that everyone could see it. Colossians chapter 4, verses 2 through 6. Devote yourselves to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. Pray for us too, that God will give us many opportunities to speak about his mysterious plan concerning Christ. That is why I'm here in chains. Pray that I will proclaim this message as clearly as I should. Live wisely among those who are not believers and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone.
Hey kids, don't forget to look in the background for all of the cool characters.
And remember to watch this week's episode of Connect HQ. Bye!
Here's the point that I'm going to try to draw out of this text. This is based on my interpretation. Communicate and demonstrate Jesus' presence. This letter, called Colossians, begins with the authors, Paul and Timothy, addressing the Colossian church in response to how they had begun to act toward them. The church didn't like the way that Paul was sharing the gospel. They even sent their pastor to Paul to correct him and change the way he was sharing the gospel and change the people that he was sharing it with. Now, however, at the end of this letter, Paul brings the conversation back to them. Paul asks them to pray that he's more effective in the way he's sharing the gospel and with the people that he's going to. And really, he's asking them to pray as well, that they would be just as effective and step up and copy his example. And he gives them some specific prayer points and instructions to guide them to praying effectively for Paul and Timothy and also for themselves. There are 3 specific prayer points and instructions that I want to highlight in order to help us figure out what's going on in this passage and help us to figure out how we can apply them. First of all, demonstrate. The text says, live wisely among those who are not believers and make the most of every opportunity. After Paul requests prayer in his activity of sharing the gospel, he then instructs the church, the Colossian church, to live wisely. The wisdom that Paul's presenting is a style of living that generates opportunities to share the gospel. He's not asking them to pray to live wisely among themselves, namely other believers. He's asking them to live wisely among people who are not yet followers of Jesus. And he's asking them to do this in order to create opportunities that they can make the most of. And I think we can just simply intuit what it is that's being meant by this passage here. We generally know the ways that we can live to tick people off. Don't do that. And we generally know the ways that we can live that will attract people to us. Do that. I mean, it's being neighborly, it's being friendly, it's being present, it's expressing care and compassion, it's being interested in other people instead of only thinking about yourself. It's built on basic people skills, and I think that we can kind of get this. We're not being asked to pray or to live in a way where we all become street preachers and global missionaries. We're not being asked to pray to become full-time pastors and begin to act like that. It's not what's going on here. We're being asked to act like decent human beings, the kind of people that others would appreciate being around. Pretty simple. So what do we do after we've been living as a decent human being? What do we do when others respond to us as regular people respond to each other? Well, second is communicate. First is demonstrate, second, communicate. The text says, let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. Paul and Timothy's request here is to pray for them and then to communicate with other people, kind of like what they do. It's pretty simple stuff. Talk graciously. However, there's a purpose here in this talking. Live well in order to create opportunities and then use those opportunities to take the initiative to talk about Jesus. And that is so scary. It's so scary. So Paul asks them for prayer because he's actually doing this stuff. At least at the time of the writing, he's doing this stuff. So pray that he can continue to do it because Paul knows how hard it is. And they could be praying that they could be doing it as well. You know, it's one thing to live in a way that invites conversation from other people and gets notice that we're something special. It's quite another thing to actually communicate about Jesus. It requires some moxie to choose to use our influence in order to bring Jesus into a conversation. That is next level communication. So Paul says, yep, I know I'm doing it. Start praying right now because I know it's hard. That brings me to this third point here, and this is a huge pray point that I'm going to ask you to begin to pray about. The third point is all around kingdom agency. Here's the thing. God's kingdom is here right now. It is totally present, but it's only present spiritually. It's not like we can see some huge gold shiny city all sparkly with angels flying all around, lots of trumpets, lots of partying because God's walking around giving out free gold and free chocolate cake and free sandwiches. It's an invisible kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom. No one can see it, no one can hear it, no one can touch it. That is, until someone steps into kingdom agency, like Jesus was a kingdom agent when he came. Until someone takes ownership over their place in God's kingdom and actually communicates and demonstrates the present reality that God's kingdom is here right now. No one can experience God's kingdom unless a Jesus follower both demonstrates and communicates Jesus' presence. When we show people how awesome Jesus is, and when we tell people how awesome Jesus is, and that he's here right now, then others have access to experience God and his kingdom for themselves. Jesus followers have agency to be the catalyst that converts something invisible into something that is experienced. So that's what's behind this prayer passage. That's what's behind the concluding remarks at the end of Colossians. The authors are asking us to pray for us to be kingdom agents. Be the people who communicate and demonstrate Jesus' presence, because without us, Jesus is invisible. Without us, how are others to access Jesus? How are others to hear about Jesus? Without us, how are people to experience how awesome Jesus is? Here's the summary. I can be an agent of God's kingdom. And if you're a Jesus follower, you can also be an agent of God's kingdom. We can become agents of God's kingdom, obeying the Great Commission when we communicate and demonstrate Jesus' presence. That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? And you know what? You can also ask for the link if you'd like to join us on Sundays at 10:30 or at 6 o'clock p.m. That'd be awesome. For community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.